And you know what? Here in California, that includes, even though I'm a California and I'm on the left and I vote Democratic, that doesn't mean I can't criticize the governor, Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom has been the target of the right wing in this state for quite some time, especially since the lockdowns began. He just ended the stay-at-home order. A lot of people are claiming that was totally unfounded, wrong thing to do, that it's just putting more people at risk. There is some evidence that the ICU rate, that there's more room in the ICUs now that it has gone down. But just a couple weeks ago, guys, I was doing a story about how the mortuaries in my town are basically at capacity. They're flying to meet the need and bury and cremate people that they're getting from, crowding their facilities from coronavirus. But it has to be taken into account that Gavin Newsom is facing a recall election, and it's actually gaining steam. And so maybe his decision to take down or to remove the lockdown orders had something to do with the recall election. Now, the other thing that made Gavin Newsom, the target of the far right was a photo or two of him dining in a restaurant without a face mask. Let me see if I can bring it up here. Yeah, here it is. So, paywall. Give me a second, guys. So let's see here. So this is from the Sacramento Bee. Here it is. So there's a photo. Let me see if I can just zoom in on it for you guys. Now, so Gavin Newsom and a bunch of his friends at a fancy restaurant in the Bay with no masks, eating indoors, right? So this made him a big target of Republicans in the state, calling him a hypocrite, just made a lot of people mad at him. And I got to say, people, they deserve the right to be angry about this, especially since salons have been closed, restaurants, indoor dining, even outdoor dining has been closed during the lockdown order. So businesses are struggling, and this is something we have to recognize. You can't just write it off. Well, listen, everybody, the disease. Yeah, the disease is the problem. But again, elected leadership should do the right thing in this situation. But here's the interesting thing. That's not even the most egregious thing about what he was doing there. Yeah, he should not be a hypocrite in that way. But check out this story from Sludge. I recommend you guys read through this. It might take you a little while. But check this story out. Newsom delivers for energy clients of lobbyists he celebrated at French Laundry. He was at that restaurant. And what's more scandalous about that is who he was having dinner with. A review of public records suggests the Newsom administration's actions have been inappropriately influenced by his lobbyist friends' firms. In mid-November, as COVID cases in California were hitting numbers not seen in the state since the initial spring surge, Governor Gavin Newsom defied his state's own guidelines to attend a mostly indoors dinner at the upscale French Laundry restaurant in Napa Valley. The dinner was organized to celebrate the birthday of Newsom's advisor, Jason Kinney, who is also a top lobbyist in the state. Attending the event was a big PR risk for Newsom, who had for months been telling his constituents not to do exactly what he did by attending the party. He publicly apologized, blah, 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 blah. But Newsom wasn't breaking the guidelines for just any old event. Kinney and Newsom are close personal friends who have worked together continually for 20 years. Kinney's close friendship with the governor appears to be a major asset for his lobbying firm, Axiom Advisors, whose clients included dozens of companies that employ the firm for helping influence the administration. Axiom's client list includes several oil and gas companies and other businesses in the energy industry. The review of state lobbying records, official government actions, and news reports by Little Sis and Sludge found several cases in which Axiom's energy clients received favorable outcomes from the Newsom administration, a trend that suggests Newsom's decisions have been inappropriately influenced by Kinney's firms. So, One of these companies is Era Energy. Era Energy, which is jointly owned by Shell and ExxonMobil, it's an oil company and accounts for nearly a quarter of California's oil and gas production, paid Axiom $200,000 during 2019 and 2020 for lobbying on oil and gas permitting issues and other matters. As journalist Steve Horn reported for Capital in Maine last June, Era received the first new batch of fracking permits from the Newsom administration after a months-long moratorium. Newsom had placed a temporary ban on new fracking permits in California in November 2019 following a series of scandals at the state's oil regulatory agency. So, guys, remember how, Gavin Newsom during our wildfires, keep in mind, he was, standing in smoke and everything was orange. And he's talking about, this is a crisis. We're, this is really bad and we're living through it and we got to get through it one day at a time. He had granted fracking permits to Era Energy, his lobbyist friend's, client. Era Energy operates here, like within sight of where I live. There are hills out towards Orchid. There's it's called Cat Canyon, where we have a bunch of oil companies out there. Era Energy is one of them. ExxonMobil is the company that really owns them. So, people in California who, want to criticize Gavin Newsom for going to that, restaurant. Jay Coleman points out in the comments, French Laundry got COVID grants too. Yeah, and it's one of the most expensive restaurants in the country, he adds. Not only does it make him look like an out-of-touch elitist, but when you realize he was there with a lobbyist who, helped, who served corporations that Gavin Newsom then helped out in a big way, fracking permits in California, right? The Golden State, the Governor Jerry Brown before him acted as this climate leader under President Trump, and Gavin Newsom now acts like we've got to do all this stuff about climate change, and he's handing out fracking permits like candy to his lobbyist friends' clients. So that's a lot about that. I would like the Democratic Party to be better than it is. Gavin Newsom has an incredible amount of power in this state, and people have suffered because of the decisions he has made. And so we need to be honest about this, and we can't have kid gloves or just have rose-colored glasses. That's one of the good things I think that the left is aware of going into the Biden administration is there's no honeymoon here. Okay, we are not going to. This is not like the Obama years where we're going to give them the benefit of the doubt with hope and change. We, as the left, we need to build our power in the Democratic Party. It's the only party worth reforming. It's the only party worth pulling in our direction, because the populist right is, talking about, Marjorie Taylor Greene is talking about Rothschild space lasers creating the wildfires. They're not talking about climate change, guys. They've allied with the Proud Boys and fascist street thugs, and that's who they want to ally with. I could talk about this. I could go more into this idea of organizing with the right, and of course we know who was calling for that, specifically with the Boogaloo Boys. But guys, the Democratic Party is the only party worth saving or worth realigning anyway. And we're not going to get it done as long as we have, corporate lobbyists and consultants in power, whether it's the leader of states like Gavin Newsom, whether it's cabinet secretaries like Janet Yellen, who, here she is. Janet Yellen got $810,000 to give speeches at one of the firms in the GameStop mess. This ain't it. This is why Justice Democrats need to primary anybody and everybody. Gavin Newsom should be primaried by a progressive. And I think even, a lot, if this state elected Bernie Sanders in the primary, California, keep in mind, California, we have led American politics many times. The two most popular Republican presidents during their time were Richard Milhouse Nixon, and Ronald Reagan, and they were both California Republicans. So don't think Gavin Newsom's not going to try to run for president either. Of course he is. But, we have to, if California, which has set the standard and led the country in a lot of ways, whether it's in, pushing for fuel efficiency in cars, to the politicians we put out. Now, the first woman vice president, Kamala Harris, is a California Democratic senator. She's a California Democrat. She very well could be the next person running for president. So if we as a state can hold the Democratic Party accountable, primary Gavin Newsom, take him out of power and put in someone more progressive. If we're the state that elected Bernie in the primary, we could do that for sure. And, and I don't think it hurts the Democratic Party to be critical and hold it accountable. I think it only helps it. Okay. Yes, the Republicans, are circling their wagons right now. They are, trying to, but honestly, they're a mess right now. The Republicans are a mess. They just want to make sure Donald Trump doesn't start a third party, the Patriot Party, because then they really would not hold power again in this country. If they're not, Trumpism ain't going anywhere. Trump still has the Republican Party by the short hairs, and he's not going to let go. And now he's got his crazy, devil spawn running through the party, harassing, the child victims of mass shootings and all other kinds of craziness, making up anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, all that stuff. So the Democratic Party is in power right now. We've already pushed Joe Biden in a progressive direction in many ways, and they've responded to that. So we need to keep pushing further. And it doesn't hurt the party to, point out when it's done wrong. I think it only helps it. So if y'all were wondering, I do a lot of criticizing of the Republicans and Trump and all of that. I don't think that party's worth, trying to reform. I think it's not a bug, it's a feature, what you're seeing right now on the Republican Party. They've just gone so far into, the tactics that they've held for a long time. Now it's like, they're bogged down by it. They're treading water. They're basically able to keep their head above water. The Democrats, on the other hand, they've been a centrist party for so long. Now just Joe Biden acting a little progressive seems like this big revelation to everybody. But it's not good enough. And it needs to be more. And I think we can all help it push for more. Because that's what our generation, millennials, and especially Gen Z, when you look at the numbers, the age range of who voted for Bernie in the primary, it started in people in their 40s. Gen X were voting more for Bernie than for Biden. And then it gets progressively more and more a larger group. So we have the progressive numbers. We just got to make it out, guys. We got to make it out. We got to vote. And we got to take these corporatists out of power. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. That's my manifesto.